So today we want to talk about a bill that has passed the Senate in Iowa and is going to the House for a final vote, which is a fetal homicide bill. So the last line of it, as used in this section, unborn person means an individual organism of the species Homo sapiens from fertilization to live birth. And so I think it goes without saying that if this becomes law, it's going to be problematic for women's rights at a level which we haven't seen in Iowa in a long time. I want to just read one paragraph from the article. It says, critics argued at the hearing that if the bill's definition of personhood becomes law, access to abortion, birth control, and even in vitro fertility treatments could be threatened, although the bill itself is restricted to criminal acts that harm a fetus against the woman's wishes. So basically what's happening here is they're trying to get this bill through so that they can redefine what a person is so that they can attack women's rights later. And I have a few things that I could say about this, but Mike, off the top of your head, what are your thoughts?
Off the top of my head, the important thing that I think is mentioned in this article, the policy director from the ACLU, Daniel Zeno, is quoted, and he says, yes, it's limited to the criminal code. This is a step in a much longer process of getting personhood and banning abortions. So what I think he's implying is that if this passes, it sets a legal precedent for a definition of personhood that is unnecessarily geared or agenda biased towards a specific worldview of what a person is. In this case, it's obviously a Christian conservative from conception to birth, a person. And once that's on the records in this law, they can point to it and say, well, look, we already have one law that says this. So it's not going to be that much more difficult for us to pass a new law with the same language because there's already a legal precedent. So it's not that it's dangerous specifically because somehow it's going to affect the criminal process because this is criminal code, but that in the future, it's going to just create an easier entry into more restrictive, anti-humanist, anti-feminist laws.
And do you suspicion, as I do, that if this became law, that once that happened, to go back and then redefine what a person is to say that it doesn't happen until later in pregnancy or at birth, wouldn't they just take the position then that, like, well, you're trying to take something's humanity away? They would try and moral grandstand on that type of position, or is that not going to be a move that's open to them?
Yeah, I think that's totally a move that's open to them. Because right now it's just the way this current law, this current criminal code is, it just talks about the termination of a pregnancy. Once you actually have a definition in there that says a person is, and then you define what that is, you can say, no, you're not terminating a pregnancy, you're killing a person.
An unborn person.
Yeah, and now it becomes a moral battle instead of just a matter of like, well, is it legal, is it not? Now you're the bad guy because you want to kill people.
Yeah, and this is a continuation of Christian agenda dictating the way that our lawmakers think. It's a problem in Iowa. We haven't spoken about Iowa on the channel at all, but we're both from there. I lived, something like 29 years out of my 31 in Iowa. Maybe a few of those were in Rock Island, which is just across the river in Illinois, but right in this area called the Quad Cities. And this has always been a problem in Iowa, that the separation of church and state is a joke. It's a farce. And even this bill, it only had Republican support. So only the hyper right-wing, hyper Christian conservative Republicans in the state voted for this piece of trash to be passed. And just so we're clear, effectively, they're going to use this and they're going to try and make abortion illegal. That's what they're going to do. That's what's going to happen. And so, did you have anything else that you were wanting to throw in here, Michael, or I was just going to say that I think people should be calling their Congress people. I mean, that's essentially that's the message. Is like, you should be calling your Congress people right now because it's going for a vote. And if you are in Iowa And even if you're lukewarm on the issue of abortion, this is too restrictive. Like, you do not want people writing laws like this and just throwing in fundamental answers to questions like that at the bottom of a bill in a tertiary manner like this, where it's obviously going to be used for different machinations later on. Even if you're lukewarm on this topic, you want to step in at this point and you want to call your Congress people and tell them not to. I don't know if it's called Congress in Iowa. If that shows how I took the one civics course or whatever in high school. And in any event, it goes to the Iowa House soon, so now is the time that for the people to have their voices heard.
Yeah, and I think to mention that, as is our particular bent, the language is important in the bill. When you actually see the line by line changes that they're trying to make, in every instance where it's okay, it's arguably maybe a left-leaning language, but more or less it's a neutral legal language. In every instance where it says terminate a pregnancy or terminate, it's crossed out and it just says death. And in every instance where it's talking about pregnancy, it's crossed out and said unborn person. And so it's not just that we're changing the definition, but they're going through and they're slapping out the language to something that is much, much more specific and has a totally different connotation and has different meanings beyond just trying to define the crime. Also, you said, contact your representatives. I think it's important that we point out that right now it's the House Judiciary Committee that's discussing it. They have to advance it to the House. And it does have the support here of one Democrat. It's not strictly Republicans. Contact all your representatives because they all matter in a debate like this.
So there's one Democrat who's supporting this bill?
Yeah, her name is Beth Wessel Kroschel, if I'm saying that right, of Ames, and she's a Democrat.
And that's confirmed, like you know that they support the bill?
Yes, that's stated in the Iowa Public Radio article.
So I mean, anyone if you're center or left, like, this person is betraying your values. If you voted Democrat, this person is betraying your values.
And I would think if you're a woman who's concerned with, ideals and concerned with the rights of women, I would be offended that there is a right-leaning center Democrat out there saying you don't have the right to choose how we define your child, or in the future how you define your pregnancy or how you handle your pregnancy. I just think it's kind of gross, and it always surprises me that there's women out there that are fighting to ban abortion. And she happens to be.
And say her name again.
Beth Wessel Kroschel, or Kroschel. It's Kroeschell, for those of you out there with the Googles. And so I just wanted to make that point a little stronger. It's not just the Republicans who are doing the bad things. I mean, in Iowa, we have this unique farmer culture mixed in with a couple of big university towns, and Des Moines is a large town where there's more of a liberal center, and you get both sides. You get these conservative rural people who think that this is the way it ought to be because Jesus or because tradition, as opposed to other people who have higher education, who have left ideals, who have thought out their beliefs, and they're knocking heads. And unfortunately, even the Democrats here can't always be trusted because I'm guessing she's probably a farm-bred girl. She probably grew up on some farm, went to church every Sunday, was a daddy's girl, cliche, flannel shirt kind of person. And it just goes to show, like, even here in Iowa, like, the Democrats aren't always on our side.
No. And so in closing here, they are trying to pass laws that are going to take people's rights away. There are big problems on the horizon. There are laws being passed that are anti-dissent laws. The president is using executive powers in ways that I have not ever seen them used before, mandating that universities I was not even clear to exactly what he was saying they have to do to foster free speech, but that executive order is of dubious nature. And then laws like this, Georgia, which we're going to be talking about in another video, either today or tomorrow. Georgia is passing a heartbeat abortion law. This type of shit is on the rise. It's on the move, and the way that this works, the conservatives will try and take the rights away from the last people that got them. So abortion rights are on the table. Gay rights are going to be under attack. And if you think for 1 second that these motherfuckers will not get back down to where they're looking at African Americans, and then it's going to be women's right to vote, women's right to participate, if you think that it can't go that far backwards, think again.